What is an immigrant, and who gets to call themselves expats? It's a bit of a controversial topic. I should know. Back in August 2017, I wrote a blog post about the words expat and immigrant. My blog at the time was called The Chorizo Chronicles, but the domain was expatmadrid.com, mostly because I was thinking about search engines when I bought it. The Chorizo Chronicles is a better name, but nobody understands me the first time I say it. The mix of languages is confusing. Anyway, Chorizo Chronicles is slightly funny and has multiple layers. See if you can figure out what they are. Now that I think of it, having a blog with an unrelated domain name is probably not good SEO practice, but after years of writing there, I felt stuck with it. An expat sounded more glamorous than immigrant. I've gotten plenty of blowback for using the word expat through the years, but in my mind, it's a title I earned through many years abroad. Hey everybody, it's Daniel. Welcome back to Spain to Go, the best podcast in the entire multiverse for all things Spain. This is episode 148, and today we're going to talk about expat and immigrant, the labels, and also a few more things. Plus, I've got a big life update to share, so stay tuned for that. First off, I've got a shout out to Bob, one of my most loyal supporters. Bob is actually the first paid subscriber over on my new Substack, which you should definitely subscribe to. Head on over to spaintogo.substack.com, spaintogo.substack.com. You can sign up for a free or a paid membership over there. Paid, of course, is far superior. Bob actually signed up for the yearly membership, so thank you very much, Bob. I've actually met Bob a few times here in Barcelona. He comes out from time to time. We've had dinner together. Anyway, spaintogo.substack.com is where you can find me these days. Just go over there and sign up. Free membership gets you all the updates. Paid membership gets you all the updates and more. Thank you to all the supporters, past, present, and future. Let's get back to expats versus immigrants. When I came to Spain in 2004, I ticked a lot of the classic immigrant boxes. A young male, alone, mostly broke, and without a work permit. It was a struggle to get by and also to get legal. Aside from Madrid's splendid art and architecture, there was little glamour in my life for several years. I was living in shared flats, eating the cheapest meat, drinking 30-cent beers, and just trying to survive by giving English classes for 12 euros an hour. Starting in 2009, Spain had an economic crisis as well. For a while, things were getting worse for almost everyone I knew. But eventually I did it. I pulled myself up by the laces on my Doc Martens and made a life for myself abroad. Not just any life, a legal one. Through a process called Arraigo Social, I got a work and residency permit in 2012. When I was illegal, I thought of myself as an immigrant. Once I got a residence permit and no longer had to avoid the cops everywhere I went, I started using the word expat a bit more. My salary was still terrible and I had to renew my permit every couple of years, but my position in Spain was a lot better. By 2017, I had been legal for several years. In fact, I had just gotten long-term residency. That meant I didn't have to justify my continued presence in Spain. I just needed to renew my ID card with the police every 5 years. Simple. Still, in that article where I talk about the great expat versus immigrant debate, I'm apparently confused about words more generally. I call myself a citizen, a loyal subject of His Serene Majesty Juan Carlos I. I suppose that, given the Serene Majesty bit, I was being sarcastic, but all the same, I wasn't a citizen at that point, just a legal resident. In fact, I still had 5 more years to go before I could apply for citizenship at all, and I knew it would take a couple of years beyond that to get fully nationalized. Getting Spanish nationality was a long and difficult process, which I talk about in another episode of this podcast. I think there are probably multiple episodes at this point. But back to 2017, because it was around that time, in the summer of that year that I met Morena, who soon became my girlfriend. She was in Spain on a highly qualified visa, meaning she was fully legal. But when things at her PhD program went sideways, all the lawyers told us she would have to find another way to stay legal. We eventually moved to Barcelona. We got a civil partnership so that she could stay in Spain. Further bureaucracy ensued. It was expensive and stressful, and it took years. I've had about 10 Spanish lawyers all told, but in the end, it worked out. Now Morena is a legal Spanish resident again and on the path to citizenship. Later, we got married in a Hindu temple in Morena's hometown in Kerala, India. Getting a Hindu wedding translated into something that is bureaucratically valid in Spain is another years-long process, one that we haven't really started on yet. So for now, we just have a civil partnership in Catalonia, and we're filing our taxes separately. Shout out, by the way, to Roberto over at Continentalis.eu. Roberto is the official legal counsel of the Spain to Go media empire. If you're doing anything involving Spanish immigration, you should get in touch with him. Continentalis.eu, continentalis.eu essentially is how you spell that. IS is for Immigration Services. Anyway, Roberto has helped me a lot through the last few years. He is by far the best Spanish lawyer of all the Spanish lawyers I've had. If you mention my name, Daniel, he will give you a discount on your services, and I will get a small commission. So please do that when you're signing up. Continentalis.eu. Talk to Roberto. Or if you're looking for background checks, sworn translation, apostille of The Hague, things like that, you can also talk to Continentalis. You'll be talking to his friend Joanne in that case. Either way, use my name, Daniel, and you will get a discount. Continentalis.eu is the place to go for that. Thank you very much. These days, like I said, I'm a legitimate Spanish citizen. I got Spanish nationality last year, coincidentally on the 21st anniversary of my moving to Spain. We have a different king now, too. Felipe VI was crowned in 2014, so he was king when I wrote that article about expats versus immigrants, but not when I first got legal. Also, I've never heard anyone use the word subject to refer to a Spaniard's relationship to the monarchy. The Constitution of 1978 doesn't use the Spanish word súbdito at all. It uses ciudadano. So let's just stick with citizen. In any case, all this has created an identity shift in my mind. If I'm Spanish, I guess I'm not an expat anymore, or an immigrant. I'm just a Spanish guy living in Spain. After more than 20 years, it's an odd feeling letting go of those immigrant and expat labels. None of this is even the big life update that I promised you at the beginning. So let's talk briefly about life after the immigrant struggle. Don't get me wrong, the immigrant struggle was and is a large defining part of my identity. But at the same time, I don't think I'm an immigrant anymore. Also, I can no longer muster much enthusiasm for the expat versus immigrant vocabulary debate. The Facebook groups for Americans moving to Spain are full of rich folks claiming to be immigrants or, God help us, refugees. In their minds, they're escaping an oppressive regime back home, just like people did in the old Ellis Island days. It's a bit exhausting. Some of the richest generations the world has ever created, latching on to that word immigrant as their virtue signal as they contemplate a low cost of living retirement in the land of sangria. But I guess I get where they're coming from. So here's my current take. Call yourself whatever you want. Labels are necessary, but they also greatly simplify the complex reality of life down to something easily digestible and mostly false, or at least incomplete. So here is a big life update that I have no problem announcing here because the number of people reading my Substack and listening to this podcast is not huge, although someday it might be. Big news, Morena and I are having a baby. Please hold your applause. If you'd like to sign up for a paid membership over on Substack, I would appreciate it. Help me out with that diaper money. I appreciate your well wishes also. Yesterday we had the 20-week ultrasound, and it looks like everything is fine. In any case, impending fatherhood has given me plenty to think about. The baby will be born, if all goes well, in mid-November. And she, the doctors have told us that it's a girl, will be born Spanish, Española de nacimiento. I'm sure we're not the first parents to deal with this, but I'm curious to see how it plays out. Morena and I have spent half our lives on the immigrant struggle, and our kid will just be a local. Unless she decides to move to some other country later in life, she will have no idea what we're even talking about. I'm already picturing her at age 12, thoroughly sick of our lectures. Immigrant life? Whatever, Dad. Stop being so old world about everything. All of this led me to think of a final question here. Is it better to have a life without struggle? I really don't think it is. I wouldn't wish my life as an immigrant on anyone, particularly my own kid. At the same time, I learned a lot from that struggle, and I developed my capabilities and self-image in ways I never would have managed if I had stayed back on the ranch in Arizona. Every generation has their problems, and with the pace of technology, I expect the world our kid grows up in to be quite different, maybe a lot easier. But I'm also suspicious of the tendency towards ease, comfort, and convenience in everything, because the most meaningful parts of life are often the struggles we would avoid if we had the chance. This isn't part of the official definition, but to me the word immigrant implies that you're starting near the bottom, and hopefully trying to work your way up. With luck, our daughter will never even know what that's like. That's about all I've got for today. I did want to comment briefly on Birthright Citizenship. This has been in the news this week. We're recording this in July of 2026, so right around the America 250 celebration, and the U.S. Supreme Court has just upheld birthright citizenship as part of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. I think it's worth mentioning that even though the Spanish media loves to portray the U.S. as being the worst and most racist country in the world, actually we've had birthright citizenship for a very long time, and Spain doesn't. Our kid will be born Spanish because I am Spanish. Otherwise, Spain does jus sanguis citizenship, which is blood citizenship, basically. You inherit your citizenship from your parents, even if you are born in Spain. So if two Moroccans have a baby in Spain, the baby is Moroccan, at least initially. The parents may be able to obtain a Spanish nationality for their child later. But that is jus sanguis as opposed to jus solis. These are the Latin words for different types of citizenship. Anyway, if you would like to meet someone who just drops lots of Latin phrases into his normal conversations, definitely talk to Roberto over at Continentalis.eu. He'll help you with your Spanish legal needs, especially with immigration, but I think he does basically everything these days. So Continentalis.eu. Use my name, Daniel, when you are signing up, and you'll get a discount. Thank you very much. I have one further PS over on the Substack article that this podcast was based on. That one says, in the 2017 Expat versus Immigrant article, I also talk about the word giri, which is basically a pale-skinned person from a country richer than Spain. In other words, I am a giri, and Morena, as her pseudonym suggests, is not. She's also not a giri because India is not a rich country. Our kid will be some sort of ethnically mixed new Spaniard, definitely not a giri, but something new. Thank you once again for listening. Head on over to spaintogo.substack.com and sign up there for updates. You can get a paid subscription if you would like, and that will also help me out. Help me out to spend time on this project more than anything. Thanks once again to Bob and all my supporters, past, present, and future. Until next time, from beautiful Barcelona. Hasta la próxima. Bye.